you can't see the opportunity in your space or around you if you're still caught up in your own head.
Yeah.
So in order to see that, you have to get past it. And I'm not saying that's easy. I mean, it's insane. It's hard. It hurts. But once you get through that, be true to yourself and say, like, what can I accomplish if I just look outside myself? And I think that's what you're saying is like, there are a lot of opportunities. There are a lot of things you could do out there. You just have to look.
Welcome back to the Bombshell Business Podcast. I'm your host, Amber Hurdle, and today I get to share with you yet again one of my personal friends who I just think the world of, and she has so much to offer you in terms of mindset and business acumen and all kinds of good stuff that we love to talk about here on this show to keep us all going as bold, brave, unwaveringly confident women in business. But before we go to my girl, Rebecca, I just need to take a quick little time out. For those of you who are not in the vacation rental industry, if you will give me just a sliver of your time real quick so I can address everybody that I know is going to be tuning in to watch Rebecca and just give a little shout out for an event that I'm going to be a part of. If you are in the state of Florida, we are probably coming close enough to you. I'm a part of something called it's the first ever Vacation Rental Talent Summit, and it's our Florida Roadshow. We're talking about maybe doing this in lots of different locations, but this is really important because I think more than anything, the human capital or what drives all of your business results, the humans that do all the processes and everything, it's going to get real with an uncertain economy and lots of different factors going on. We really need to understand how we're attracting and retaining top talent. So if you are near the Sarasota area, it's like 30 minutes from my front door, we're going to be there on Monday, the 6th. So it's going to be me, Steve Trover with Better Talent, Gerard Lester with Extent Team, Mike O'Connell with Turnover B&B, and Brian Riggs with Venturi. So if you're in the industry, you know these guys. And I think Jamie is going to be with us too. So come see us. So Sarasota on February 6th, which is Monday. And that is going to be at a really nice restaurant in UTC. We're going to feed you a great meal. All of these, you're going to have a free lunch while we're all teaching you very tactical ways. This is not a pitch fest. We're going to have you be able to walk out of this and learn something that you can actually apply to your business and get results. Like that's the end game, right? So we're going to be in Sarasota on Monday. We're going to be St. Augustine on February 8th. And that's a Wednesday. Fort Lauderdale, Friday, February 10th. So you just need to go to vrtalentsummit.com. You can register. Again, it's free. If you have food allergies, let us know. We would love to have you there in the same room. In this industry, we love to be belly to belly. So anyways, vrtalentsummit.com. Register. Space is limited. We are feeding you a really nice meal. You're not going to get a box lunch. So I hope you register and come hang out with us. Now, back to the show. And thank you. Y'all know I don't promote a lot on this show. This show is all about y'all, but I'm going to have eyeballs on it. I need to share the good words. So let me tell you about this chickadee who is on the show today. Rebecca Lombardo went from being unemployed, homeless, sleeping in her car at 30 years old, to standing in Jackson Hewitt and Kraft Heinz and Revlon boardrooms in Manhattan, giving the CEOs marketing advice. She now has an amazing husband whom I've met, and his energy is so great and supportive of Rebecca. Like you could just feel it, which is so refreshing and nice. And she has 2 boys, and she has co-founded a company that we will talk about today. And she was once one of NBC News' first backpacking journalists to Africa in 2002. And then she, ran over to Ukraine for teaching writing there, and then hopped on over to Japan for Yahoo Travel. And then she's also the fiction author of a book called Finding Cover. So I don't know if that impresses you or not. She is definitely a Renaissance woman, which is why she is my girl. Welcome to the show, Rebecca.
Thank you so much. It's quite a lot.
A lot to cover. Let's just start with, I think most people are going to be like, hold on, back it up. Let's talk about homeless, sleeping in your car, 30 years old. Walk us through that, girl.
Okay. So So what happened was I was kind of escaping a bad divorce, and I wanted to move from Orlando to LA, and I didn't have the resources to sustain the move, but I wasn't going to give up. And so once I got through like the whole couch jumping on, with friends circuit, I just kind of my luck ran out, and I wasn't going to give up. I wasn't going to go back. So I held on for one more night, even if that night meant I had to sleep in my car with my cat. And the next day, I got a job as magazine editor in LA and got a great apartment with a pool and everything. So yeah, it was tough, but it's kind of like if you can just hold on for one more moment, the next day holds a lot of promise.
Yeah, and I kind of want to dig into that a little bit because I think there are some of us who are just wired with like an intense amount of tenacity. But then there's also like I know in my own life, like you get right there and you want to give up because you're like, I've done all the things, I've thrown everything at it. Like, when do you just cut your losses and say, this isn't for me? But then if you just hang on, just give it one more push, and then you're like, oh, there it is. I just had to like really believe that this was possible. So what was going through your mind when you're out in, I mean, I'm from Orange County, California. LA is not the easiest place to make your way. What was going through your mind?
I just had it in my mind that I was going to do this. It was always something that I wanted to do. And when I lock my vision onto something, like it's going to get done. There's just no question about it. So I was just going to double down and make it happen. And I did. And that experience, I feel like, is what kind of helped me break through or begin to break through a lot of the mindset that I needed to get over in order to get where I am today. So like a couple of years ago, it started as well, where it was like, I need to see myself differently. I need to get out of my own head. I need to get to a mental place where I can go further and stop letting a lot of stuff hold me back. It's kind of like cobwebs, you're getting through like 40 years of cobwebs, clear it all out so you can get to that next point. It's not easy to do. It takes a lot of time and energy and breakdowns.
Yeah.
but that's what gets you there.
Yeah. Well, if it was an easy path, everybody would have whatever they wanted all the time. And the reality is most people don't. They don't have the life that they want. And I'm not even sure that they know. It's interesting that one question I often ask is like, well, who do you want to become? And I've had so many women say, I've never even thought about the answer to that. And I'm like, what, huh? But then it hit me like, as I was continuing in at least the coaching side of my practice, that I think maybe those of us who have hit the skids, we've been thrown under the bus, like we're in the foxhole, like you have to plant your mind on where you're going, and like just with an indignant certainty be like, everybody's gonna quack off because this is my mission. But I think you kind of have to like, am I like, and correct me if I'm wrong or if you disagree, maybe I'll say it this way. When I go through a shiz show, I consider that fertilizer, and I know that it sucks in the moment, and I have my pity parties. But I know that whatever it is that I'm going through, I have to go through it. I can't go around it. I can't go under it. I can't go over it. I have to go straight through it. Your cobwebs, get your clarity. Like, what is it that I really want? And you can't depend on anybody else to save you. I mean, does that seem right to you?
I don't know that it's that clear at the time that you're going through it. I think maybe in retrospect that would apply. I think when you're going through stuff, it's more of like I'm just going to double down.
Yeah.
And then when you look back on it, you're like, yeah, you know what? Now that experience helps me relate to somebody else, or that experience helps me to be like, you know what? No ego here. Like, I'm just here to like make it work.
Yeah. I think that humility piece is important too, because it's just like, you don't know where I've been. I've been at the bottom. I've seen it. I'm good. I have no ego here. I love that. So let's just jump forward then, because like a lot has happened. You got married, you had kids. And then this past year, towards the end of the year, you had another big significant shift. Wasn't as dramatic as sleeping in your car, but you had a shift that you weren't anticipating, and then that birthed something else. So can you walk us through that whole process?
Yeah, I think it's a misconception to think that like, oh, that was the bottom and now we're all up from here.
Yeah.
Like that, like no, that is not how these stories go. That might be like a movie, but no, that is not how real life goes. Real life goes up and down. So yeah, I had another moment where it was like I needed to take a moment and reassess. I need to think for a second. I did have things I went through that I did not see coming, and you were there for me during that time, which is awesome. You're such a great friend. But yeah, I think I came to the realization that I needed to make another big shift in my life. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm meant to work for myself. I'm meant to have my own company. I'm meant to do my own thing, be my own boss. And here, I thought I was having this great epiphany, and I told my husband, he was like, yeah,
Duh.
like
Let
I'm
me
just sitting
introduce
here.
yourself to yourself. You're Rebecca. This is what it is. Yeah.
I was like, I had this great aha moment. Like, I probably should have done this years ago. And my husband just say, they're like, yeah, like that's kind of obvious to all of us out here in the, looking at you. But great that you realized it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of took that. I took a step out. Wanted to hang my own shingle, do my own thing, and I described as like that scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark where Indiana Jones steps out over the cliff, and all of a sudden this bridge magically appears before his feet. I feel like that's what happened to me this past year. And you don't look at everything that you've accomplished as a whole, some of its parts, because you're in it and you see all the individual pieces. But when I put my LLC out there, I was like Rebecca Lombardo Agency, and I did what you said. Like, yes, I was in the boardroom, at Revlon and at Jackson Hewitt, and I was talking to these CMOs and CEOs about their enterprise analytics, and they were like, "Wow, she's right. This is good." I don't see that as like impressive. I just see that as like I was just
You
getting the
are.
job done. This is
That's
just
what you do.
what I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of snowballed, right? Because I put that out there, and then I got to work with some great brands, right off the bat. And then right after that, I got introduced to Travis Wilburn, which is how I ended up working with 100 Collection. So it's just been steamrolling since then.
Yeah. And again, we talked about this, but like Travis and I zoomed, and he brought me in on this top secret situation he had going on. And I was like, this is amazing. And then you were out here and for some reason I didn't my brain wasn't connecting. And then when that all unfolded, I was like, yeah. I mean, it's another one of those, well, of course, this is it. This is perfect. So as we're becoming, and one of the exercises I do, and it's in the book, The Bombshell Businesswoman, there's a whole chapter dedicated to it, is I ask people to follow their breadcrumbs. So we go all the way back to childhood, and we start looking at how people perceive you, about where you found your gifting, about where you found joy in the activities or the things that you did, or what you offered to other people, the value that other people found in you. And then we start looking for the commonalities and the common threads in all of those individual situations: childhood, junior high, high school, college, first job, all the different jobs, your relationships, your volunteer work, what's common in that. Now we have an understanding of how do we show up in the world, and what is our value in terms of external, value, not the value that we hold in ourselves. And then when you start to see that, miraculously, other people start picking up on it. And I feel like that's what happened with you, is you were like, oh, well, I've got to figure this out. Let me just start putting all these puzzle pieces together. You put it out into the world. And when you put that out into the world, the right people and the right opportunities came back to you. It's personal branding 101. So what do you think it was that Travis saw that he was like, you're my co-founder?
I think that he saw that I was dedicated to the people within the vacation rental industry because I really connected with them. Just they're genuine, their lifestyle, their intent, their hospitality. That is something that I love. And I think he could see that I genuinely wanted to work with these people and help them and put all my talents and gifts and skill sets and ammo towards helping them. And that was a perfect alignment with where we were going with the project.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's just kind of skip into that space, because this is totally new. It is absolutely needed with everything that's going on in that industry, and I won't get into it yet. I want to hear about what this is about. You have essentially brought a Michelin star, James Beard quality, like distinction that you bestow upon vacation rental companies that meet a certain standard. So can you tell us what is the company, what's the intent, and what's the benefit?
Okay, so the company is the 100 Collection. That is the brand. It is a distinction that recognizes vacation rental companies that are locally owned and operated who are best in class for hospitality, which means they're setting the gold standard for quality, safety, and a fantastic experience. Because it's not really about booking a room or even a whole house. It's about the entire experience.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're setting forward with the 100 Collection, that you can choose any of the partners on our website and book and have a great stay.
Yes. Okay. So let's take that from the consumer standpoint. So I'm a consumer. I'm tempted to just, it's 2 o'clock in the morning and I haven't gotten to this. So let me just go ahead and book a vacation rental. So why would I go to the 100 Collection instead of just hopping on an OTA, an online travel agency, Airbnb, Vrbo, Booking.com?
Yeah, I mean, it totally makes sense because Airbnb is the path of least resistance, right? And everybody thinks like, oh, I can just go to this one place and it's quick. But what ends up happening is that it's short on the front end, right? Like you just go to this website and then like there's tons of options. But then you spend hours and hours and hours looking through reviews and photos and dates. And that's a lot of time on the back end. And what we're doing is kind of flipping that and saying, hey, we're going to save you a lot of time of sorting through reviews that you may or may not be able to trust, and and photos that you may or may not be able to trust. We're going to save you all that time, right? So we're going to save you that. We're going to put right up front properties and companies that are 100% legit, amazing. They look great. They actually are great in reality. So cut to the quick, go right. But instead of booking it like Airbnb, you go to a room, think of it like how you book a hotel, and you go to a hotel brand and then you pick one of those brands within the collection and say, oh, that's the brand that resonates with me. That's the kind of stay I want to have. And then you pick a room.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of flipping it on its head, but in the end, saving quite a bit of time.
Yeah. Well, and then like, I've had the experience where I've booked something on an OTA and all the pictures are perfect. And then, one place in particular, I thought the area was really nice because my client's area was really nice. And I picked a place close to the client. And it was COVID time, and it was like only the essential workers were out at that point. Like we weren't really traveling, but this was a luxury construction company. So they're essential. I was essential supporting them. I drive all the way down from Tennessee to this area in middle of Florida. And I start driving towards my place, and it was like checking the cash, vape shop, pawn shop, checking the cash. I'm like, oh no, where am I going? Pull onto the road. There's a ambulance and a police car across the street. I'm like, not good. Then I can't even figure out how to get into the house. Then I do, and I'm like, what is this? Like, where am I staying? But at the last minute, you can't really change anything. So that's where I had to stay. And it wasn't comfortable and I wasn't happy with it. But online, it looked great. All the reviews were like, best day ever. And it's just like, well, who are you? Like, we all have different expectations, right? So having somebody like you who's like, no, we're professionals and we verified this. We're not, Jan and Sally who are on a bachelorette trip who are trying to pool our money and save a buck. Like, and nothing against them, like good for them, but that's not where I'm trying to stay,
Yeah. It's like you said, a woman traveling alone, especially, it's like, I kind of want a guarantee. I kind of want to not have to worry about this.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, let's back up, because this went from this thing that you and Travis were whispering to me about, and then suddenly everybody in the industry knew about it. We're all wearing your hats. Like we're all like, everybody's in on it and super pumped. So I want to like kind of break down more, but I do want to ask you, Miss Marketing Queen, like what was the number one thing that like the strategy that you put into place to like have that initial explosion and that acceptance of a brand new brand that you're kind of also like, oh, and by the way, we're the authority. Like that's kind of some like ballsy moves right there.
That's how we roll.
Yeah, it's both of you.
So it was kind of a two-punch approach. We've got Travis, who's got trust with a lot of, pillars of the community, so to speak, right? Within the vacation rental industry. And then I'm bringing my marketing background to the table where it's like, that logo needs to be flawless. Like that needs to like really set the gold standard, literally. So the trucker hat, which is what everybody was wearing, is kind of a symbol within the vacation rental industry of the OG, right? So the vacation rental industry used to be like trucker hats and flannels and Hawaiian shirts and flip-flops. Till recently, a lot of dark suits start showing up, like
all that private equity money came flooding.
all that private equity,
like,
yeah, yeah.
Another breed of you, okay.
Yeah. So the logo of the 100 collection is really the gold lettering stands for like this sets the gold standard. This is the gold seal of approval. And we're putting that imprint on properties that really do pass muster, right? That do pass our vetting, and that do lift the entire industry up as a whole and are a good representation of what vacation rentals are actually about. And then putting that imprint on the trucker hat, which says like, oh, and we're part of the OG, like we're part of the original group here. And then giving those hats out to people who are very influential within the industry because Travis had that trust with them. And so when he hands them that hat and asks them to wear it, they're going to do it because they know that what Travis is asking is for the betterment of the entire industry. So you could say it's new, but it's really not new per se. This is an alliance that is long overdue. All we've done is take a logo and put a logo on the alliance that, kind of already existed, the ethos that kind of already existed within the industry.
Yeah. But I love too that y'all got the tiger by the tail before an external person did and like came crashing into an industry they didn't really understand to do something. Like you are industry vets saying this is based on the collective feedback, the collective expectation of the people who have truly been professionally managing vacation rental homes or condos for decades and decades. Like this isn't a person who bought a property and threw it up on Airbnb and that's like all they do is like hope for the best. And there's, it's very transactional. It's very real estate and good for them. Like I'm not bashing those type of people, but that's not really what the industry is based on. It's not what it's about.
Yeah, I think the first ad for a vacation rental was back in 1962, actually. Obviously this kind of hosting's been around for a long time, but professional vacation rental companies, like professional people have been around for, like you said, decades and decades. And that is an actual profession that isn't, somebody slapping a mattress on a floor in 2015 and asking you to like come stay in some kind of Craigslist format. Like this is professional.
And then take out the trash and do all your laundry and sweep.
Yeah. So yeah. And I don't know that we got out it in time. I feel like we're a little bit behind because it's like, this is so overdue. This is something where it's like this concept needed to be out there years ago. I'm glad it's finally out there now. But yes, it is people within the industry owning it. This isn't like an outsider coming in and saying, we're going to Michelin star you. No, these are people who are, peers who recognize, recognizes like. They all have amazing concierge services. They, like I said, they are setting the gold standard in terms of everything, being a good local neighbor, treating their guests, in an amazing way. There's a lot going into it when we vet somebody and then vet their properties. But what we're really doing is saying, hey, this is the creme de la creme of the industry. And we want everybody to aspire to want to be in the 100 collection.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I think too, with a lot of the regulatory issues that are going on right now, I mean, they're here and across the pond, like our friends in Europe are dealing with it too. And because of this influx of, I'm going to call them real estate investors, they're coming in, they're buying up properties, then they're, slapping them on an OTA and, doing a good job in that space. And I'm like, listen, if you are an Airbnb host, I'm not bashing you. Good for you. Make your money. And also do it responsibly because there's a lot of you out there that don't really care about the neighborhoods that they're in. They're just trying to make a buck. If you're listening to this show, I know that's not you. But the challenge is you have all these professionally managed properties, these professional managers will say, doing right by their neighbors, making sure they're investing in their community, like giving to the community, the philanthropy and the volunteerism, and making sure that they're being good stewards of the earth that they're existing in, like really good, amazing people that are bringing tourism and they're like doing good things for the community. And then you have these other people that just don't really care about any of that. They're just trying to make their money. So naturally you have the communities are like, nope, we're blocking this, we're banning this, we can't do that. And it's kind of a thing. But what you're offering with your gold standard, like, is that a thought for you and Travis of like, okay, I'm going to come rolling up in a, county commissioner meeting or like a zoning meeting, and I'm going to come in and be like, hey, listen, I've been vetted. Like, what does that shift for that local operator?
So it has a lot to do with brand, actually. If you owned like a local, if you had a store that you were the manager of like a Tiffany's or, like or a high-end store, and you show up to a local legislation meeting and you're like, excuse me, I am not the one leaving my trash out.
Right.
They would be like, oh, no, of course not. I'm so sorry. Like, absolutely not. Because your brand that you represent, is held in high esteem. And God love these vacation rental companies, but like branding is not necessarily always their forte.
Right.
So here comes Airbnb with $14 billion, to put their brand out there. And now the association with their brand is negative. And so I feel like we have an opportunity here to take these legacy brands that really should have that high esteem and put those brands out there in the community and say, look, my brand is at that level. My brand is quality. It is top tier. It is top notch. And so putting your brand out there and branding your company that way, I feel like is going to make a really big impact as you force local legislation changes. And if you are locally owned and operated, that could be a challenge. And so what's happening is a lot of these companies feel the pressure to roll up to a bigger brand. And what we're saying is you don't have to. You can be under the umbrella of our brand, that is the gold standard, and associate your brand with ours, which, working towards putting you in that high esteem, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So I go to the 100collection.com and I'm like, okay, here's all the different brands. Just like if I was to go to Bonvoy app, then you have Marriott, you have JW Marriott, you have Courtyard, you have all those different brands. And then you're like, well, which one do I want? And you pick it. And then you go into that portal and then you decide what you're doing. So with you go to 100collection.com, then you're like, well, where do I want to stay? So that kind of helps paint things. And then like, ooh, this company seems really great. And then I click on it and then it goes directly to their website and I can interact with them personally and like have actual conversations about the experience that I want to have and not just like hope I get the code the day before.
No, it's a book direct website. Like our job is to help you find the brand that you want to stay with, to help you find the experience that you want to have when you're in that destination. That's it. Like we're trying to introduce you to a brand that resonates with you so you can get to their website and see their 100 collection, which is like 10 or 20 properties. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's really all about, being that Michelin star, being that Zagat guide that's more of an editorial approach. I obviously come from a journalism background where I did travel writing, right? And I remember when I stopped getting assignments and I was like, hey, I haven't gotten an assignment in a while. I'm ready to go somewhere and do my next write-up. And they're like, oh, we're not going to need that anymore. There's this thing called TripAdvisor and people are going to write their own reviews. I'm like, so some dude who's never left his basement in Mississippi is now going to be writing articles and like professional reviews about companies, travel companies. Am I getting this right? We're going to trust that. So I think we're, again, taking it back to like, let's be professionals about this. Let's have standards. Let's hire people who can put things into context and help you make a smart, educated decision on where you want to spend, $5, $10, $30,000 on your vacation.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, and I think too, like this particular industry it's a little wild, wild west still, which I love. I mean, I think that's why I love it so much. It's like, it's all the hospitality, but it's also like this super crazy entrepreneurial spirit. Like everyone is pretty, like self-sufficient and drivers and competing priorities. And like, you can keep your rules. I got my rules. Which is great. But then when there aren't like really true standards, like in hotels, which I also work in, like there's expectation, there's standards, there's common expectations. That particular industry is extraordinarily sophisticated, and it also is supported at the legislative level. I mean, they have a lot of lobbyists and a lot of influence on government. And I feel like the vacation rental industry is in this growth phase of becoming more sophisticated without losing that's the word I'm looking for, the authenticity, the grittiness of it, So I just think this is definitely right solution, right time. And
Yeah,
Bombshell, I'm kind of giving some extra commentary here because if you're not in this industry, I want you to think about the things that Rebecca's telling you about, the things that she and Travis have birthed, the things that she's experienced in her life, because it's applicable no matter the industry. Look inside the industry that you're already working in and find a hole and fill it. Like, look to see, well, who's not doing something? It's just like, my biz besties over at Better Talent, like, they're like, there's not an affordable way to do recruiting and talent acquisition in this industry. So they just created this thing, just like you guys did. And like, what a beautiful experience. Let me ask you that. Like, what is this experience like for you to be able to birth something out of nothing?
It's always been something I wanted to do. I always knew it was kind of in me. And this gets back to like what I said before about getting out of your own head. You can't see the opportunity in your space or around you if you're still caught up in your own head.
Yeah.
So in order to see that, you have to get past it. And I'm not saying that's easy. I mean, it's insane. It's hard. It hurts. But once you get through that, get out of your own head space, like stop thinking about, these are the things people expect of me, or this is like the niche that I'm supposed to be in. Like, be true to yourself and say, like, what can I accomplish if I just look outside myself and stop, getting caught up in my own head. And I think that's what you're saying is like, there are a lot of opportunities. There are a lot of things you could do out there. You just have to look. So there's an experience I want to share real quick where it dawned on me the difference between like being in my head versus like, being in an entrepreneur's head who has been really successful. So I was in Charlottesville for a meeting with Travis, and he had some of his buddies there. And Travis set up the Charlottesville Insider, which is kind of like his own local, CVB situation. And these guys that we know in the industry who are, very successful entrepreneurs were walking around the CVB, and they're asking questions of Travis, like, well, how does this make money? And how did you get started? And like all these like business oriented questions, opportunity questions. And I'm like, wow, I walked through here and like, those were not the questions that went through my head initially. And so it was just like, wow, seeing the same space as opportunistic rather than seeing the superficial of it is a total mindset shift. Mm-hmm. And that's what I want. Like that's why I want to clear the cobwebs, because I feel like I can do great things. I feel like I can do big things if I just get over myself and get where I can, have that kind of mindset. Because I am a big thinker. I am a strategist. But if I get caught up in the minutia of myself, I'll never get there.
So good. And I think you just slayed it. Like, one thing that I hammer on in my social media and like a lot in my personal stories and I mean, there's like a whole chapter in the book. Like, I talk about this ad nauseum because I do genuinely believe, and just from my own life experience of going from teen mom to where I am now, who you surround yourself with is what gets into your brain, and who you surround yourself with is the baseline of your opportunity. So like when you're growing and then you're with these people who don't want to grow, or they just don't have it in them to grow right now, like if you keep lowering yourself to meet them, you're never going to get to where you're going. Like, you have to, like, cool, hang out with them if you want, but if they're not coming up to you, they're not really your squad. They're not your inner circle. Like, I'm not saying cut those people out of your life unless they're toxic. But when you start rolling with people who are like-minded, maybe a step or two ahead of you, who see things differently, who challenge how you think, like, that's what I hunger for. Like, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me that I'm playing small ball. Tell me that like it's actually possible. Show me that it's possible. And when I worked with, so many wealthy people, very, very, very young, I was able to see what was real. I knew their stories. I knew that it wasn't handed to them. I knew that they had to work really hard for it. I knew that they skinned their knees and they cut their lip and they fell and fell and fell and kept getting the brick back up. And when you expose yourself to that, like what you just said, now you're like, that's where the mind shift changes because someone has shown you a different way of looking at things. And I just pray that that keeps kicking you in the butt, sis.
It's not originally that, like, Warren Buffett was like, my 3 rules of life are like, surround yourself with, good mentors and smarter people, protect your reputation. Like, it's,
Yeah.
it's not a new concept.
I have such a crush on Warren Buffett. Like to this day, every time I see him, I'm like, he's so yummy. Like I know he's like the savage business person, but now in his older ages, I'm just like, I just want to be like his granddaughter or something. I love him. So, okay, let's talk about one final thing before we get into like how we get a hold of you and where we find all the good information. I know this is going to be good from you. So I ask every single guest, what is a parting piece of advice that you want to leave with our bombshells? Bombshell being redefined as bold, brave, unwaveringly confident woman. Not that we don't ever get shaky, but when we fall down, we get back up. That's what I mean about unwavering. So what's that final piece of advice?
Yeah, this is definitely that line from Hamlet, where Polonius says, "To thine own self be true." I think if you can stick with that, despite even what your family says to you, then you'll go far, and you'll have success as it is defined by you.
As it is defined by you. I think that's so important. Not what those people said out there, not what somebody wants for my life, but my inner knowing of what is right for me and how my gifts can be personified in this world where I get to feel my own value. There's nothing selfish about that. Like if you can't exist in a world where you know that you matter in the context of everything, that you're energetically connected like you are, I mean, you just like showed up, you're in everything, you're everywhere, like no matter where I see you're there, and like what a shift. And you did that, like the 6 inches of real estate between those two ears, you were like, all right, let's button this up.
Yeah, I'm really happy. Like, I'm genuinely happy now, and I think everybody can see that.
Yeah, you do glow. You glow. Yeah. And first of all, just thank you for being open to being my friend and having that level of transparency and authenticity with each other. Cause it's not easy being a strong woman in the world. It's just not. We got to stick together. And then thank you for being, I still have things to get to in terms of how to get a hold of you, but I genuinely thank you for being transparent with our listeners because they needed to hear your story. They needed to see this. There's people struggling right now and they feel lost, and you've given them some direction. So thank you for taking the hits and then sharing it.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to tell my story and share it. And thank you for saying that Jane Fonda is your spirit animal.
She is. Oh my God, I love her so much. Somehow I got to meet this woman. It's going to happen. Like I'm putting it out into the universe. I'm meeting Jane Fonda. And if she wants to bring Dolly Parton with her, I won't be mad about it. So, all right. So let's talk about how to get a hold of you. So first of all, if you go on LinkedIn, and I'm all about going on LinkedIn, is where business gets done. Like do Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever you want to do, TikTok. But LinkedIn is where we talk about business. So like, let's go there, find Rebecca. You can search Rebecca Lombardo, but you can also search, it's linkedin.com/n/Rebecca Bredholt, BREDHOLT, your maiden name, also your author name.
Yes. Yeah. My fiction novel is published under my maiden name, Becca Bredholt.
Yeah. Okay. And then on Instagram, you're Rebecca Lombardo. And then if you want to go and learn more about the 100 collection, it's all spelled out, words and everything. It's not numbers. So the100collection.com. And if you go /news, then you'll kind of stay up to date on what's happening in that world. But I'm just telling you, as somebody who stays in a lot of vacation rentals, and I'm on the inside of the industry, you want to go to this website to find what you're looking for. And I think that's it. Is there anything else that we need to point out in terms of how to get a hold of you?
No, I just highly encourage everybody to reach out. I would love to connect.
Yeah, she's a sharer. She's like me. Like make friends with her. Get her on LinkedIn, on Instagram. We're here to serve you. And I know that people have poured into me and Rebecca, and we both have that mindset of like paying things forward. So, don't be shy. This is the cool thing about the interwebs is we can all connect. So
Yeah, I used to manage a team of like 30 people, in person, and now we're all like remote, or I'm not managing 30 people anymore. And I'm like, oh, and
yeah,
I miss that. Like, so
yeah.
yes, please connect with me in chat. I love it.
Yeah, awesome. Okay. So, and then what you're going to do is you're going to connect with Rebecca. She's going to teach you some things. Y'all are going to brainstorm, whatever. And then you need to go and do that with another bombshell. And then that's how we're going to be that community of bombshells together who show up and we are in service to others and we're not losing ourselves and we can be strong women. And that is what community is based on. So with that, I think I'm going to end. Make sure that you go to amberhurdle.com/podcast with an S to get the show notes for this, get all the different ways you could get a hold of Rebecca. If you're on YouTube, give it a like, leave a comment. We're not the greatest at promoting YouTube, but I know that there's a small handful of you who prefer that. So we keep doing it. Maybe we'll get our poop in a group on that pretty soon. And if you haven't left a rating and review, I know I've been sloppy about not reading those on the show. I'm still getting settled, which is why I have all this weirdness behind me in fuzzy world. But I'm getting unpacked. I'm super crazy, insanely happy in Florida now. It's nice and warm. So just hang in there with me. We're going to keep on improving the show and getting it back to its glory days. So let me know what you took from this too. That's the one thing I for sure want you to do. Amber@amberhurdle.com. Tell me what you learned from Rebecca, and then I can share those notes with her. And other than that, have a beautiful day, and we will see you on the next episode.